Just kidding. Hi guys. Okay, so we are going to go over our volleyball referee / site supervisor training. You better be watching this, otherwise you can't ref. This is Shelly Ann. I don't know how many of you know her. She's our part-time coordinator. She also plays in our leagues, is a volleyball fanatic. So that's why she's here, because she's gonna
not a good player, but a fanatic.
Whatever, she's a good player. And she knows her stuff.
Yeah.
So she's gonna help out. Basically, we're just gonna make this simple and sweet. We're gonna go over some rules, and this is really weird for us to record this. We're gonna go over some rules. Shelly has more experience reffing, especially with our adult league, so she's gonna kind of go over the referee part for us. And then I'm gonna send you an email that contains some videos that you must watch, along with the rules that you must read. And then we'll see how it goes next week. Okay.
Great.
So first, I've included in the email the rules for our specific league. And I just wanted to go over a couple of those with everyone. So each game will be timed 40 minutes. I will have a stop clock at each court at Centennial. You as a referee, you will be solo amigo on your court. You will need to keep the time as well as keep score. The teams are supposed to provide a line judge for you. If they are not wanting to, say, well, then good luck on your lines. We need them to provide that. Matches will be played to the best 2 out of 3 sets to 25, and the cap will be at 27. So once a team hits 27, that's it. Game's over.
And the third game is to 17, right?
And then the third game is to 17. Or sorry, 15, and then capping it at 17. So please don't let the games go on forever. Another thing important is if time runs out, so that 40 minutes runs out, it's whatever team was up wins the game. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. So just be aware of that. I've kind of gone over net heights with you guys at our trainings this week. Okay, serving. So 3rd through 4th grade will serve 10 feet in front of the normal serving line. 5th and 6th will serve 5 feet in front of the normal line, and then 7th through 9th will just serve the regulation line for serving. And some coaches have been asking about balls. 3rd and 4th grade is the only group that will use the light volleyballs. Everybody else uses the normal volleyballs. I feel like that's it.
Are they allowed to step on the line on the serve in this league?
Ooh, I think so.
Let's see. Participants may reserve after their first serving attempt if their first serve does not clear the net. That's important.
Yeah. So okay.
If it doesn't specify it, then they're not. They just have to be behind the line, unless you've specified that it's okay.
I think we'll follow up. We were trying to get technical with that with Rylan, and then I don't think we came to a conclusion. So for serving, this is also something you as a referee have to pay attention to, which I'm sure this probably doesn't happen too often. But if a player serves 5 times and like they get 5 points from that, they have to rotate after that, if that makes sense. They can't just keep serving and win the whole game because they served. So once a player hits 5 successful serves, the team must rotate. They keep the ball, but they have to rotate. I think that is kind of everything I wanted to go over from our rules. I just need you guys to read the rules. Shelly's going to go over USA volleyball rules as far as what we will cover or what we will call in games.
Yeah, and I was just noticing that the net rule you have on here is different than the USA net rule. So I'll kind of talk about what this is, because in my opinion, if they touch the net, it gets called as a net, which is what most rules are. And I think this one just hasn't been updated, but we sent it to all the coaches. So maybe you and I will talk about that after, but I'm just going to go over what is in the USA rule book. So this is, you guys are all going to get a copy of this. You can't see this because it's backwards, but this is chapter 4 in the USA rule book. And this is the only chapter in that whole book that really matters, to be honest, because it's what actually deals with playing the ball. So as you're reading through it, some of it is just states of play, which we're not going to really go over. Team hits and stuff like that. They get 3 hits, which you guys all know. But I do want to kind of start at like rule 9.1 on team hits. A hit is any contact with a ball by a player in play. But then it goes on that consecutive hits, and you all know this, that you can't hit the ball 2 times consecutively, meaning like a set is a double if they hit it like out of sync, if that makes sense. But also 2 or 3 players may touch the ball at the same moment. They are allowed, if 2 players go for the ball at the same time, to contact the ball at the same time, and it still just counts as 1 hit. It says that when 2 or more teammates touch the ball simultaneously, it is counted as 1 hit. Any player may play the ball next if the simultaneous hit is not the 3rd team hit. So just keep that in mind. And then it talks about like when 2 opponents touch the ball simultaneously over the net and the ball remains in play, the team receiving the ball is entitled to another 3 hits. So that's a joust. If they're up above the net and they're jousting, it doesn't count as one of their team hits. Okay, so characteristics of the hit. I know you guys mostly know this, but we're going to go over it anyway. The ball can touch any part of the body. So is kicking allowed? Yes, it is. Is a chicken wing allowed? Yes, it is. All you have to worry about is, has the ball been caught or thrown, or is it a double hit when they're not allowed a double hit? So the other thing is that the ball may touch various parts of the body, provided that the contacts take place simultaneously. So setting, using 2 hands, has to be a simultaneous hit, right? It can't bounce like this. But another thing that sometimes will happen is that they'll go for the ball like this and it might hit off their head or something like that. I would not call that as a double hit because it's 1 action. I would just let that go and explain if someone, especially in these younger learning, like the learning leagues, if the coaches come up and say, well, that's a double hit, I would probably say it occurred in 1 action, which is okay. If they went like this and then like moved their head to hit it like a soccer hit or something like that, yeah, like a headbutt, then it would definitely be 2 actions. It can touch any part of the body. It cannot be caught or thrown, which I think you guys know is, we call it a lift or a carry. Mostly they just call it prolonged contact. Like how long were they in contact with the ball? Did the ball bounce off of their hand or their arm or their head or wherever they hit it, or was there prolonged contact as they pushed it over the net or whatever? Blocking is not counted as consecutive contacts. So it could technically, if they're up for a block, hit both hands at different times and it would still be a legal play. Let's see. Oh, and the other thing is on the first hit. So any first hit over the net, so that could be a serve or even a pass over the net, they are allowed to double hit it. So it's meant as a rule for those hard serves and the hard hits that are coming over, like people are just getting their hands up, right? But it's still legal, even if it's a soft pass over the net and some kid double hits it and sets it or something like that. It's still legal if it's the first hit of the play. And that's on any first hit. Here's the faults. Here are the things that you're going to call. 4 hits. They didn't hit their 3 hits. An assisted hit, which I've never called that in all of my years of volleyball, but it would be a fault if they got an assist from, like, say, another player or an object, like they climbed on a bleacher to get a ball. You're not allowed to do that. A catch or a carry, the ball is caught and or thrown. It does not rebound from the hit. The greatest thing I can tell you is it doesn't matter how it looks. It matters how the ball bounces. So if C and I are playing and I stick my hand out and go like this, it may not be a lift. If the ball bounces, or we tip all the time with our fingertips, right? And sometimes people can tip with their hand in this position and it's still a good legal tip. So you have to keep in mind, how long did that ball land in their hand before they tipped it off? If they're going like this and their whole arm is moving the ball all the way up, then it's probably a lift or a carry, and I would call that. So don't go by how it looks, go by how the ball rebounds off of the hand. Did it bounce? Was it a tip? Is it legal? Double contact, which we talked about. A player hits the ball twice in succession, or the ball contacts various parts of his body in succession. Legal. Or illegal, unless it's the first hit. Sorry, illegal, unless it's the first hit. So that would mostly be a setting call. Like you're watching your setters when they go to set, and are they setting the ball with both hands consecutively? Now here's the thing. In these leagues, you're going to let a lot go. because they're learning and they're little. So 3rd and 4th grade, 5th and 6th grade, especially 3rd and 4th grade, most of the set, if they're in position and they're under the ball and they're making a valiant effort to set it, let it go. 5th and 6th grade, you just kind of have to see how it goes. They've learned a little bit more, but a lot of them are still playing for the very first time. So you're probably not going to let as much go as you would. But again, if they've gotten in position, they have their hands above their head and they're trying their best to be in position and to make a good hit, I'd probably still let that go. Once you get to the older league, the 7th through 9th grade league, I'd be, especially if they have designated setters, I guess is an important thing. I'd probably be calling it a little bit more, but also still letting them play because we want them to have fun and we want them to play. So it may take me and Sia being there a little bit the first couple of games to kind of say, no, let that go. But I'd call that, especially if it's a really, really bad one. I think those are the ones that you call. And then everything else that's just pretty close, I'd let go. Let's see. Ball crossing the net. We don't really need to go over. The only thing I want to point out about that is, so when the ball crosses the net, we need a ball. I'll show you. This is something that tall kids, boys especially, when they're playing at the net, will want to reach over and tip it down. So if this is my ball and this is my net, as soon as the ball and any part of the ball has crossed the plane of the net, so right there, see how that ball's, and it's playable, it's their ball to play. So it doesn't matter if it's a set, an overset, or whatever, they can hit it down, they can tip it down, they can block it. What they can't do is interfere with the second hit. So if it's a good pass and the setter is right there under it and it has not crossed the plane of the net and they reach over and tip it down, that's an illegal play. They cannot interfere with the second hit. But if the team passed it over the net or even just barely to the net, as soon as, you know, like you can be up there quick blocking or whatever, as soon as it passes that plane of the net, it's their ball to play. So that's the biggest thing to look at on that, is making sure that some of the taller kids who can reach over the net aren't reaching over when they're not supposed to. And just reminding them, hey, you have to wait for it to cross your plane of the net. You have to wait for the ball to come to your part of the net before you can hit it down. And remind them that a block specifically is an interception. So if they say, well, I'm blocking, they're not blocking unless the ball is coming at their hands, because they're intercepting the ball from coming into the other court. Let's see. Ball in the net, that doesn't matter. Oh, reaching beyond the net, which I just talked about. Now, they can have their hand cross the plane of the net in the action of playing the ball. Like if they're going up to hit and their hand happens to go over the net and down, but it's their play and they hit it from their side, they can do that. It's just following through on their hit. It talks about that here. And a blocker, you'll see people going up and blocking above the net like that. They're allowed to do that as long as they're not interfering with the hit. So those are the only things on that one, I think. Let's see. Okay, penetration under the net. So this is what it says. It is permitted to penetrate into the opponent's space under the net, provided that this does not interfere with the opponent's play. And what that means is it's permitted for their foot to touch the other court as long as some part of the penetrating foot or hand or feet remains in contact with or directly above the center line. So what that means is you can land on the line, but you can't be completely over the line, both on hands and on feet. This only says feet, so maybe, I don't know if they've changed that. No, okay, this is what it says. To touch the opponent's court with any part of the body is permitted, provided some of the body remains either in contact with or above. Okay, yeah, it's the same. It's the same for any other body part. So if they happen to be diving to get a ball up and their whole hand crosses the center line, that would be a fault. That would be a line violation. They had to have, and if we had the ball in the net here, I would show you, but the most often time that they cross over the net, well, in these leagues, it's probably all the time because they don't have a lot of control over themselves. But in adult play, the time that you see it the most often is when they're pivoting to come back to the approach. So you go a block, you come down, you're on top of the line, but not over it. And then you turn to come back. That's most often when you're over the line. Do I call it every time? No, but if there's the same player that's over the line every single time, then I would definitely start calling it and reminding them they have to stay on their side of the net. Let's see. Here are the net faults. A player touches the ball or an opponent in the opponent's space before or during the opponent's attack hit. You cannot interfere, like I've said like 20 times, you cannot interfere with their play. You have to wait for it to cross over to your net or be blocking, which isn't an interference, it's interception, not interference. A player interferes with the opponent's play while penetrating into the opponent's space under the net. So they hit a player even if they weren't. So sometimes if they are legally on the line still, but still landed on someone, I will call them under the net because they interfered with the opponent's play. If they penetrate completely over the line, if you touch the net or the antenna during your action of playing the ball, using the net or the antenna as a support or stabilizing aid, creating an unfair advantage over the opponent by touching the net, like you're not going to see them that. Just remind them over and over, stay out of the net. We'll follow up on the net rule because USA does say stay out of the net. Don't like if you touch the net, it's a net. So we'll follow up on that and let you guys know. We already talked about the service. Most of these teams are just going to be rotating kids in. You're not going to have to watch. Mostly, I don't think you're going to have to watch for rotation errors. But if they're playing with a designated setter, you will. So just making sure, especially with back row setters and stuff like that, that they are in the position they're supposed to be and that they're playing as a back row player, even if they're at the net and not as a front row player. That's the biggest thing about rotations. In fact, I think they're, oh yeah, let's read that part. We're not gonna worry about the service. We're gonna double check if they can hit the line with their foot while they serve or if they have to be behind it. Here's the characteristics of the attack hit. All actions which direct the ball toward the opponent, with the exception of a service and block, are considered attack hits. Like I was saying, you can have the super soft third hit go over and it's still considered an attack and they're still allowed to double it. During an attack hit, tipping is permitted only if the ball is cleanly hit and not caught or thrown. An attack hit is completed at the moment the ball completely crosses the vertical plane of the net or is touched by an opponent. Here's the restrictions. A front row player may complete an attack hit at any height. And I think you guys know this. In front of the 10-foot line, if they're a front row player, it doesn't matter where they're at. They can jump, they can be above the net, it doesn't matter. A back row player may complete an attack hit at any height from behind the 10-foot line. And that's what I was talking about with the back row setter. Most of these kids they're going to realize that they're not allowed in front of the 10-foot line to have an attack hit. But this is where it gets really tricky. A lot of these kids are small, so they could jump and the ball could still be below the net and they're still legal. I don't know if that makes sense without a net here to talk about it, but I could maybe see if there's a video in one of the videos we're sending that talks about this. But as a tall person, if I'm in the front row and I'm swinging, I have to stay on my feet. I cannot jump or I'm going to be illegal attack because my hand above the net is the trickiest part because it's kind of hard to see where the ball is. But the rule is about where is the ball when they contact it. If the ball has at any part of the ball, where's my ball? If I'm a back row player and any part of the ball is lower than the plane of the net, it's legal for me to hit it in any way that I want, as long as the ball is lower than the net. It's when the ball is higher than the net that it becomes an illegal hit. I hope that makes sense. Most of these kids, you're probably not going to have to worry about that so much unless they're a back row setter and they want to dump it or something like that. They jump up and like want to dump it over or tip it. And you may have some kids coming from the back row that want to jump and swing, and just make sure that the ball is legal for them to attack at that height. It's all about where is the ball. It's not about how high they are. And the easiest thing for me is where are their hands when they contact the ball. It's kind of like when a service is hit, you're not allowed to attack the serve, but you can set it up, right there. But a tall person, their hands might be above the net no matter what, and they're going to be illegal if they touch it that way. So don't know if I made that more confusing or not. Did that make sense? Hopefully that made sense. They just have to take off from behind the 10-foot line, and then they can land in front of the 10-foot line if they're a back row player, and it's not a problem. Let's see. You cannot attack the serve, that's a fault. And you can't attack in the front zone if you're a back row player. We're not really going to see liberos or liberos too often. But I will say, I don't know what Sia said in the coaches meeting about rotations. I think most of the teams are just gonna rotate in the same position every
Yeah.
time,
I think
and their
we
kids
have-
are all just gonna rotate,
we
like
have
church
one
ball.
coach who may try to in the 7th and 9th grade. Boys, he might try to teach them how to do rotations, but I think that's the only one.
Yeah.
It'll be a circle.
And even then, in this league, it'll probably still be a 6-2 rotation where they'll have 2 setters.
Yeah, for sure.
So you probably won't have a back row setter, but if you do have a back row setter, you kind of have to watch for the rotations. Blocking's the last thing pretty much on the list. Here are the faults in blocking. We talked about this already. The blocker touches the ball in the opponent's space, either before or simultaneously with the opponent's attack hit. A back row player or a libero completes a block or participates in a completed block. Back row players are not allowed to block. Again, their hands are above the net. They're not allowed. They block the opponent's service. The ball is sent out off the block, which you know that. You hit it and it blocks, it's your ball, right? Blocking the ball in the opponent's space from outside the antenna. And then I won't worry about the libero one. Okay, so now that we've gone over all those, how long have we been recording for? Do we still have time?
Yeah.
We're gonna quickly go over the calls that you're gonna make, your hand signals, I should call them. So it's super easy. In this league, mostly, what you're gonna do is you're gonna indicate the serve. Sorry, see ya.
Sorry,
Like
we're away.
you're gonna blow the whistle, beep, hand straight out, bring it in. That's your indication for serve. Your hands are always open unless you're indicating change sides, but pretty much everything else is open. So open hand out, serve in. If you're indicating who received the point, it's an open hand towards that team, open hand towards that team, and then you indicate the fault, double hit. So beep, team it goes to, and then what's the violation? Double hit on this side, right? So that's kind of gets confusing sometimes. You want to make sure you point towards the team receiving the ball for the next point. This is because if you have a scorekeeper, they need to indicate who got the point. So beep, here's my point, and over here we had 4 hits, okay? Change of courts is 2 hands in front of you, and you just go beep, and you switch your hands. 1 hand starting back, 1 hand starting in front, switching them. And that's the only time I think that they're closed fists. Timeout. So you just want to make sure you're indicating the timeout with the hand that's going to point this way. Hand's going to point this way. So beep, timeout, awarded to this team. You want to make sure that the fault sign or the timeout sign is pointing to the team which created the fault. That's one of the biggest things. We're not worrying too much about substitution, another closed fist thing, but we don't have rule or we don't have cards, end of set or match. So when the game's completely over, I usually go beep, long note, and then a switch with another whistle. I didn't bring my whistle in. Not that they need that. You don't need to hear me. Okay, if it's a lift, it's just a straight hand, 90-degree angles, kind of weird, and then just straight up. So normally it would be kind of straight, and then you'll just bring your hand up for a lift. Caught or carry, prolonged contact, relay of service, we won't worry about. Blocking fault, hands straight up. At a rotation, ball in is just a point to that line. Ball in, or the ball is down. Like most of your calls that you're going to make, unless you're making a fault call, is it was a serve, the other team hit it down, the ball's down. So point, ball down. Let's see. The ball's out. So make sure your hands are up above your head. You want anyone behind you to see what you're calling because you're facing the teams, but there might be people watching, spectating from behind you. So you don't want your hands clear down here. You want them to be up above your shoulders so that people can see what you're calling. All right, where we went over catch. Oh, double contact, 4 hits. The player touched the net. The ball was served into the net. The ball didn't cross the plane of the net. You pretty much are all just indicating the net on all 3 of those. Let's see. Oh, reaching beyond the net. When I was talking about if they reach over the net and tip down a ball that's not theirs, that would be reaching over the net, which is just straight over the net like this. Attack hit fault. It's like this. Attack hit. It's in front of your face, not away like this. It's in front of your face. So if the ball is served under the net, or if the ball rolls off a team under the net, you can indicate it with a point at the center line, or you can still just point down. I'm fine with that. If there is a center line violation, it's a 1 finger point at the line. And I usually indicate like with, I should just stand up and show them that, like, so the ball, so someone's under the net, I blow the whistle, beep, here's my point. And I usually indicate by moving my hand that they were on the line with 1 finger.
Yeah.
And same with a foot fault at the serve. It's a point at the line. And sometimes I'll move my arm back and forth. Double fault or a replay, which you'll have sometimes. The ball was touched on the way out. So depending on what side it was touched on, you're going to touch on this side or you have a touch on this side. We don't play card rules. One thing there's a couple things that I sometimes do, like when I went to high school training and stuff, that are just other indicators to let people know that you saw, but you feel like it's a fair play. For example, a back row hit. Like if someone's hitting from the back row and you see it, you see that they're back row, you feel like they're safe. You'll see refs do this a lot. It's just an indication, I see it, they're legal. Either side. Just a palm out saying, I see it, you're good. If it hits the antenna, it's an out, and then kind of like this with the pole, or out pointing to the pole. Anything else you can think of, Sia? I feel like we've gone through a lot.
I feel like one thing me and Shelly were talking about too was we need you guys to be professional about it and also try to be uniform about making the calls. So like Shelly's saying with the order, pointing to the team that's getting the point first and then making the call or whatever it was. We need to try to keep that consistent with every single ref for every game.
Yeah, and one of the videos we're sending has a ref up there blowing the whistle and making calls. I think they all don't start till like a minute in. It's just a guy talking for the first minute, so you can fast forward it to about 1 minute, a guy with an accent. But then he's going to go through all of the calls and show you what it looks like up on the stand. And that's really what you want to look like. You want to look like you know what you're talking about. So I would suggest going in front of the mirror and practicing your calls in front of the mirror. So you have an idea, like just go through the scenario in your head. Okay, they served it. Oh, it was a double hit on this side. So I'm indicating, here's my serve, beep. They're playing, I'm watching the ball, I'm watching what happens, double hit on this side. So I'm gonna beep, indicate my point, double hit on this side. It's really easy in these leagues to get bored and to like lose focus because there's just not a lot happening. It's not moving super fast. And so I kind of you have to talk yourself through every play and you have to go, okay, that was a legal second hit. Okay, that was a legal hit. Okay, here we are, good pass. Oh, not a good set. I'm gonna let it go. You know, pretty much you're gonna let a lot of stuff go, but you're also teaching them. So when you blow the whistle and you're indicating a carry, you're saying, hey, get a closed fist on that so you can hit it, or get a closed fist under it so you can hit it. But they can totally legally hit it this way and bump it up with one hand as long as it bounces off, right? But I kind of, and there's a lot of people that do that all the time and they're totally legal, but kind of just teaching them as you go, but not taking too much time, like really quickly. Hey, make sure that's bouncing off of your hand is important.
Yeah, I think one thing we've told our junior jazz refs especially is with the younger age groups, it's more of a coaching referee position. Even though you're going to be up on the stand, you can still, hey, bud, just remember, stay behind the line while you're serving, or
you can't reach over the net.
Yeah, don't go under the net, keep a closed fist or whatever. Just try to teach them, but also we're there to ref them. You know, they have coaches for a reason. So
it's okay to call it and turn the ball over to the other team, but still say, hey, this is what you did wrong, so that they understand like that's what needs to happen while still keeping the game moving.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't print these out. I was going to show it right here, but I will have scorecards for you guys. So you have to keep score as the ref. The scoreboards have a little clicker, so you'll just, whoever got the point, as well as a scorecard that you will just write the score on after each game, and then you'll give it to the supervisor once your match is over, if that makes sense. Anything else?
I don't think so. Don't hesitate to like ask us though. Like, I'm happy to come out and watch some games and stand there and say, oh yeah, I would have called that. Or, hey, good call, that was great. I think it's also helpful when it comes to tournament time to know a little bit about like R2 of the second referee positioning and stuff like that. So maybe we can have another mid-season training or something where we go over that.
We're in a second one there, especially for end of season. Okay. So,
I do have one more thing, sorry. I think one of the most important things is you have to make a judgment on what's the most important thing for you to call, because on some fast plays, they're gonna hit it so hard that if you wanna know if they complete that with a net, you're not gonna see that if you're watching the ball land in or out. So you kind of have to decide on this good play, do I wanna let the net go or do I wanna make sure it's in or out? Like if you have line judges, it's a lot easier to do that, but a lot of times you're not gonna see the ball finish the play if you're watching the center line to see if they land on the line or they went underneath the line or something like that. So for me, I like to watch the line and the net, because if they're too close to the net, it can become unsafe for the other team if they're penetrating under the net a lot. And especially on little easy volleys over, I don't really watch what happens on the first hit, because there's not very many violations you can get on the first hit over. You can't get a double as long as it's hit in court. So I kind of watch the center line and watch the finish of the attack hit. And then I go to the second hit on this side and watch, okay, that's a good set, etc.
yeah, so kind of picking your battles.
Yeah.
Next week is not going to be terrible. I always tell referees who this is their first time reffing, it's going to suck at first, but you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And these teams also have only had 1 week together, so it's going to be a little rough on their end as well. So it'll be fine. We're going to do great. It's youth volleyball. It shouldn't be too stressful.
And you know for sure, point to the wrong team.
Yep.
Make the call on the wrong side, and people will be like, "What?" And you'll be like, "Sorry, it's over
my
here."
bad.
Yeah, my bad. Like, just own it and let them know. Oh, hey, I got it. Don't worry. I find that the more I'm like talking to them, and more I'm like, my bad, I got it. Like, the fault's over here, or whatever. Or you just being honest about like, hey, I can't see that line. Was it in or out?
Yeah.
And if they don't agree and you don't know, you just replay it.
Okay, cool. Again, you have to watch this training, so make sure you watch it. At Centennial, I need to remind this because we just got in trouble. Parents, anyone that's coming to watch cannot bring any chairs from the school into the gym. Immediately, if you see them like dragging a chair into the gym from the school outside of the gym.
I mean, they're pretty much all those red like school desk chairs, right?
Like it's obvious.
Yeah.
You can say, hey, this is your one warning, take it, put it back where you found it. And if they continue, or if you see multiple, we have to kick them out, because the school is like on thin ice with us right now about kicking us out of there already. So 1 violation and we're done.
Yeah.
So
and
we just have to be really careful.
Like, chair, right?
Yeah, so they can bring their own camping chairs, like blankets. They can stand, they can just sit on the ground against the wall. The school messed us up and took the bleachers out. So it's just what we have to do because we need the gym. So if you were a supervisor, even if you're reffing, we cannot break that rule. So just make sure it doesn't happen. Okay. Thanks, Shelly.
Good luck. You'll be great.
Bye.